Welcome back to the 6-part tutorial series on Serato Studio with myself, Jamie Hartley. In this video, we're going to be working on the same project as the previous video, so if you haven't watched that yet, just go back and check it out. In this video, we're going to really start making the most of Serato Studio as a piece of production software, as well as just working with audio like we have done. We're going to dive into scenes here, and we're going to be adding drums, adding instruments, really working on the samples that we've built and building out that song, building out that DJ remix that we're working on. And this will start to open up a lot more ideas when it comes to producing your own music and learning how music can be put together using Serato Studio. If you haven't downloaded the full version of Serato Studio yet, make sure to click the link in the description, enter the code Crossfader for 2 months free of the full suite of Serato Studio. But let's get stuck into this project and start building it out.
So here we are back in the project that we built up in the last tutorial. This is the Lick It a cappella over the top of the instrumental that we've loaded in, and we've still got the Lick It chops over this breakdown. Now in this lesson, what I want to do is really beef up the scene and make these breakdowns more interesting. So I'm going to add an instrument in here. We're going to start diving into the world of producing our own music, so producing our own sounds by adding an instrument into this section, because there is room for a low end. We've got vocals, we've got a bit of synth going on, but there's no low end in there. So I'm going to add a bass line in and show you how to do that. The principle is the same no matter what instrument you want to add, but we can really beef up the scenes. I'm also going to add some drums to this second break and try and turn it into almost like a trap breakdown. So let's get started. I'm going to keep this scene. I'm not going to duplicate it yet because I want to add the bass line potentially to both this section and to this section. So let's add an instrument. Simple as that. Then go back to our library view, and we need to go into our instruments tab. I'm in the bass tab here, and there's a bass sound that I like here, this Kevin Fowler's bass. All I need to do is simply drag that onto where it says drop instrument here. And you'll notice we get this cool picture, but basically what we want is make sure you click play in key. You can see you can toggle this on and off. You can use your keyboard as it's highlighted here to play all the different notes. However, if you're not musically trained, this is where Serato Studio is great. Click play in key and it will only give you the notes that will work in key with your current project file. Here you can see we're in F minor. So these are all key notes that will work in the scale of F minor. If you want to go up and down an octave, which basically means you can get to lower notes or higher notes on a piano, we can click this arrow here and we get these lower notes. We can go higher. Let's go twice. And just like before, if you've got a controller, you can use the controller to press the pads and manipulate the sound. So I'm just toggling up and down to try and find the right octave that I want for this bass sound. That's really low. So let's go here. And I'm going to do something like that. Simply just 1, 2, 3. Now I want to record that in underneath my vocal. Let's have a listen to the vocal first. And I could just practice. Go onto my bass sound and just play on my keyboard or on the controller. I could try 1, 2, 4, which would be, let's do it on my computer keyboard. So I'm going to do something like that. I can just hit record at any point and just carry on playing. And when you're happy with it, just stop. And we don't need to do anything else because we've already added it to the same scene. The scene's already dragged out on the project where we want it to be. So now if we just preview the entire song. And there we go. Now I'm happy with that. So the next thing I want to do is again beef up this scene. However, I'm going to keep the first breakdown as is. And the second breakdown I want to switch up. So this time I might just delete this second breakdown out. I'm going to copy the scene across, and I'm going to do some more with the scene so that I can then drag this down to my second breakdown. I'm going to try and make this a trap break. So I could change the way this is laid out potentially in this section, but more than anything, I think I'm going to keep it the same, just add some drums. So I've got the clean 808 drum kit loaded up here. First of all, I'm going to just drop down onto the trap drums. Now, if you didn't see the previous lesson around this in this series, then it's as simple as you can just automate drums by choosing different genres and just toggling this in the middle, and it will write drums to the length of your bar, how many bars you've got set up here, and then literally just preview it.
Lick it. Lick it.
And you could just toggle through a few different ones.
Lick it. Lick it. Lick it.
And I'm just toggling through to see what I potentially might think works well for this next breakdown.
Lick it.
Let's try one or two more.
Lick it. Lick it.
I quite like this. And I could add in some extra bits if I wanted as well. So I might add a big strong kick at the start.
Lick it.
Cool. And then I might add in some, oh no, I quite like the hi-hats as they are. Now if you wanted to test out some things, say like the clave here for example, I could right click on this and I could fill in really quickly just every half beat or quarter beat. Now I might not like that, let's listen, but it's a really quick way to write your own drums or edit the drums from these pre-programmed ones. So let's have a listen.
Lick it.
Cool. So I don't really like that. I'm going to take it out by just clicking on these.
Lick it.
But that's how we could add to the drum beat ourselves. Now I'm going to leave it like that and simply just drag it down onto here. Let's test it out.
Pull it down. Lick it. Lick it. Lick it. Lick it.
Cool. So that's our trap breakdown. Now we could extend this further. I'm going to see what it maybe sounds like over here. However, I can imagine now that the drums are coming back in the original, it's going to clash.
Lick it.
So I think what I'm going to do is just go back to adding in just the vocal sample. So again, I could duplicate this, copy it across. Actually, I'm going to copy the intro across. And then here, I'm going to have build up. Because we've got a much longer build up to work with on this second half of the song. And in here, I'm going to go in and take out my bass sounds. So we can delete them out there. I'm going to leave the lick it vocal there, and I'm going to make sure there's no drums yet because we copied the first one. So this is just the simple vocal chops. Let's listen.
Lick it.
So it switches back to the housey style drums building up. We can duplicate that.
Lick it. Lick it.
Cool. So I'm going to keep it simple like that. I don't want to add too much in there. Now the next thing is we had this other vocal, this other sample that we were using, the Armand van Helden one. Now I want to add this little into our breakdown. So what I'm going to do is simply drag this down onto the timeline at the end. I'm going to drag and truncate the end of this just to make it a really small sample. Now the reason I've dragged it to the end is because I don't want that to overwrite these samples that I've already got going on here and here. So I'm going to drag it right down just to that last little bit. And then by zooming out, I can drag this now back to my breakdown. Let's drag it across. And then let's find where we want to layer this in throughout this breakdown. Now I'm going to test to see if I can layer it over the trap section, just on the end. Cool. And I'm going to just do that 4 times over, I think. So on the back end of each bar, 4th beat of each bar. And then let's play. And I'm going to duplicate it again, just in this build-up section. So we're using samples that we've already pre-prepared and just building the song up more and more. Now, the next thing is to introduce some effects. I've kind of got the structure laid down how I want. I've got loads of elements in there to work with, but we need to make sure it all gels together. There's not just random samples coming in too loud. We're going to be doing a lot with the levels in the next lesson, but for now I want to apply some effects, and I want to do a few things with the effects banks that we have available. So to show the effects, simply toggle this FX toggle on, and you'll notice we've got the 2 banks appear. We've got the clip bank for the effects and the audio bank. So we can really mess around with and apply effects to different elements, that right down to individual sounds. We can apply certain effects too. So now let's have a listen. The first thing I would always do is go onto my main audio track, and if I've added any drums in, like I have this trap section, I want to sidechain the main audio to those drums. And it's really simple. I've clicked on the audio. The right hand side will be the effects for the entire audio track. The left hand side is for individual clips. If I were to click on a clip like that, it appears here. But I want the whole audio track. Click the drop down, and then we want to go to the sidechain. And I'm just going to have a soft sidechain. I'm going to bring this up and listen to what it sounds like when these drums come in. And you'll notice it just ducks down if I solo it. So just that first hit where the drum would be, it just drops the level of this in the background down. So that gels together quite nicely. I don't want to do anything else to the main audio for now, but all of these little vocal samples and chops that I've got going on, I want to add some effects to as well. So first of all, the Armand van Helden one, I'm going to click the actual clip, and I want to apply the effects just to the clip, not to the entirety of the audio track, because I'm using different sections throughout. So let's listen. I want some tail end of this, which means I want to add some sort of delay or echo to make it continue just slightly in the background, an overlap into the next bar. So with the drop down, I'm going to add in, let's try, I just test a few different ones out. Beam me up echo. Let's try a delay. Delay double up. And if you can't quite hear what's going on, we could always just solo it with this S icon. So I don't like how the delay is complicating the actual sample. I just want the echo, I think, to come on at the end. Let's try dub echo, see what that sounds like. That sounds pretty cool, but it's quite long. Try beam me up echo again. So that's quite tight. So yeah, I think I prefer, let's try a normal echo. So I think what I'm going to do, turn the normal echo up, put it on 3/4 of a beat. There we go. The last thing I'm going to do is you hear at the end of that sample, you kind of get this. So what I want to do is try to get rid of that. You hear that? I'm just going to zoom right in, and I'm just going to truncate the end slightly. Let's have a listen. Cool. I quite like that. Maybe go out a little bit. There we go. So we haven't got that really strong little hit right on the end of the sample. Now, what I'm going to do is just make sure I go through, and I'm just going to clean that up by dragging it down slightly on the... Let me just zoom in, then I can do some more fine tuning. There we go. And then I could just repeat this for those samples to make sure that I don't get that little clip on the end. You can see it there on the waveform. And even actually, I think it's just, it was already dragged out a bit too much. The way that I dragged the sample down previously might have caused that. Let's just check these ones on the end. Scroll across and repeat for the other ones. You can see I just want to get rid of that and that. And that sounds much cleaner. There's little things like this that you'll always have to do when you're editing music, producing your own music. You have to go in and really fine tune certain little bits to clean it up. Much better. So let's listen to that all together. There we go. It just adds a little something to the mix. Now the next thing is I want to add a little bit of reverb to some of these vocal samples. So the vocal sample in the scene, I want to sort of add a bit of reverb to this one here. It sounds very dry at the moment. So again, I just click on the sample that I want to add the reverb to. If I want to do it to the entire Lick It a cappella, so it gets this sample and this sample, then I do it on the right hand side. So let's test how that sounds. Reverb. Let's try a light tail reverb. And again, it's just testing how they sound. Turn it down. Now listen, when I turn this off. It sounds much nicer. It sounds like it's meant to be there. So again, we can work through all these different things that we've added. We could think the bass. Could I add something to the bass? Now, the instruments already have pre-programmed. You can change them, obviously, but they've recommended, again, making it super simple for you as a first-time producer. Super simple to really beef up some of these sounds. So what we could do is just turn them on and listen to what these sound like. I'm going to solo the bass, press play. So that stutter fader is getting rid of the first bass sound. So that effect I don't want on. And you can just toggle them on and off. The limiter might make it a bit louder, make it a bit punchier. We can bring the level up if we want to. Or we can brighten it up. Let's listen all together. That sounds pretty good. I'm just going to take some of the high end out by using the EQs and some of the mid. And then bring the level of it down slightly so it's not quite as in your face. Nice. So you can really experiment with these effects. You can go in and just test adding different things on. There are things like, where is it here? There are things like the EQs, so you can really like accentuate some of the sounds like you would your EQs on your DJ controller, but there's some pre-programmed ones. You can just have your HPF or your LPF to really highlight some of the different sounds. You could add something like a crusher, which can sound pretty cool. Let's try it on this bass sound. It starts to crush the sound. Too much, but we can turn that down. Now, I'm happy with it without that, but what I'd do is I'd recommend going through all the effects and listening to the effects on different sounds, like on bass sounds, like on synth sounds and lead sounds, and get used to how they affect that sound and what you can then do with the sound beyond how it's pre-programmed and how you can really change it to make it your own. So let's just preview how this is going to sound now in our main section of the track.
Lick it. Lick it. Lick it.
Cool, and then let's preview it on the back end here.
Pull it down. Lick it.
And you can see that the effects have been applied on all the scenes because it duplicates across. Whatever you do with the effects on one scene will replicate on the next scene as well.
Lick it.
Again, this sample, the Armand Van Helden one, I want to just clean it up, add some effects to it. I think there was a bit on the end of that as well for some reason. So let's bring that down. My sample's a bit too long on these. Oh, keep that there. You can see visually with the waveform where the intruder is, where that little peak of the waveform is that I just want to eliminate and make sure we don't hear that while it's being played. Okay, and we could add some effects just to this sample as well, because this is a different sample to the one we had here. This is clip 2. This one's half the length on clip 3. So we could add some different effects to clip 3 if we wanted. I definitely want another echo or reverb. Let's try a delayed reverb. Quite like that. And then we could add in a breaker. And let's see what that sounds like. Or what we have to do is, I'm going to leave the breaker there, and I want to add this on when I come to the automation in the next lesson. Turn it off for now. And then let's add in, see, all I'm doing here is I'm just experimenting with different effects that we've got going on. Let's try a delay. Turn the delay up. I quite like that. Nice. Okay, so there we're adding some effects to our sounds. We have added some drums in there, and we've really beefed up what's going on in the music. It's worth, while you're going through, just making sure nothing is too loud and using the level controls here as you go through and play, just to bring levels up and down. In the next lesson, we're going to dive deeper into that, but as you're going along, it can help to do it as you're going along rather than all at the end as well. So just keep that in mind. If you feel like something is really in your face in the mix and it sounds too loud, just bring the level down of that individual sample or that whole audio channel if you need to.
Hopefully now you can see the power of what Serato Studio has to offer. You now know how to use things like effects, the drum rack, create your own instruments, and start building scenes. And you can take all of this knowledge and start applying it to DJ remixes like we are, or you could start producing your own beats and your own music in the same way by building scenes and dragging them down onto the song's timeline. This is really where that step happens, where you move from just being a DJ to producing your own music and laying down your ideas, producing your own beats, and really creating some unique edits, remixes, and even original productions to add to your DJ sets. Remember to download the Serato Studio Full Edition for 2 months for free using the code Crossfader via the link below. In the last video of this series, the next one, we're going to be looking at how to clean up this project. We're going to be adding some automation in there, which is a really powerful tool when it comes to producing your own music. And we're going to be cleaning up the levels, looking at what we need to do when we're exporting projects to make sure the audio sounds punchy, it sounds clean, it sounds loud, and it all sounds even. So, hope to see you in the next video. I'll see you soon.